orders. Oops, now it's ready. I'm gonna try it again.
Yeah.
Calling the meeting to order for the Wellington Board of Finance for February 19th, 2026. Welcome all here and all on Zoom. We do not need to seat alternates, although I believe one of the alternates is feeling ill, so she's not here. Lori Semperbon won't be here.
I think she's on there.
She's on live.
Oh, is she on there? She's
Yeah.
probably listening in then.
Yeah.
Just going by what email I got.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome, Lori. So first, approval of minutes from February 12th. Y'all had a chance to look at those.
I make the motion to approve the minutes from February.
All right, second.
Second.
Oh.
Sorry, you said it. Sorry.
Lisa Stephanie Summers seconded.
Sorry.
Christina Mel has moved. Lisa's not going to be with us tonight, by the way, recording secretary. She's got a conflict with another meeting she's covering, so but she'll do the minutes from the Zoom. Any changes in the minute at all? Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes of February 12th? Say aye. Aye. Thank you. All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, unanimous approval of the minutes. Present to speak. Who would you like to go, Rachel?
Hi, Rachel Cook, 77 Common Road. I'm just reading this on behalf of my mom, who was not able to attend tonight's meeting. Dear Board of Finance, first I would like to thank all board members for taking time out of their busy lives to serve on this board. I appreciate your service. I would like to share a portion of an article which was published in a recent issue of the Community Association Institutions publication written by Rich Webster, CMCA, concerning the annual budget process. As you may or may not know, condo and townhome associations are community associations. They are in many ways like a small version of our town in that they charge unit owners a monthly fee in exchange for the association paying community costs, which frequently include items like common area utilities, landscaping, snow removal, maintenance, and repairs of buildings. Associations, just like our town, must prepare an annual budget to guide spending. And now for Mr. Wechter's wisdom, and I quote, Will Rogers once noted, too many people spend money they haven't earned to buy things they don't want to impress people they don't like. End quote. These are words to remember every time you draft an annual budget. Community associations must be aware of how deep they can ask members to dig into their personal finances to contribute to fees each year. It is critical that this process does not cross a line to such an extent that unit owners cannot, as a group, dig deep enough into their own pockets to live in their community. They also encourage a careful review of past spending to help prevent the repeat of past financial mistakes, and I would add, to capitalize on past successes. I believe Mr. Wechter's wisdom also applies to our town. As you carefully consider each request, please keep in mind how the total budget will impact our town's residents. Some of us are still reeling from the reassessment. The preliminary budget increases I'm hearing about are more than concerning. Our town has some real needs that need to be addressed. It needs to do so in a manner which will not make Wellington unaffordable to those that currently call Wellington home. Best regards, Don Cook.
And could you state your address for the record?
77 Common Road.
Thank you. And Rachel Cook?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak? See anyone on the line?
I think Mike Maku has his hand raised.
Okay. Mike?
Hi, Mike McCoo, Clover Springs Drive. I just wanted to comment that having attended these meetings in various capacities for a lot of years, I know that this is a particularly challenging evening for the board and for the public. Obviously, the Board of Ed budget is the biggest budget in our suite of budgets. And I would just ask everyone to remember that it should get a lot of attention because it's such a big budget. And it should be carefully crafted and justified. And I will also want to add the comment that I have new experience this year working in the building every day, seeing the hard work that goes into it. I think most of us already knew that Phil and the Board of Ed spend a lot of time trying to find every grant, every opportunity. And that has gotten to a heightened level this year, especially with working with our legislative contacts. Many of the departments in town, including myself, have been in touch regularly with our various representatives talking about the costs, and it's a statewide problem. So while we are all giving this budget careful attention as we should, I hope that everyone also remembers that the people who are working for us in this process, whether they're the paid people in school administration, all the way up to Phil or the volunteers on the Board of Ed, have worked very hard on this budget and are aware of how incredibly expensive it is. And so I hope that if there is any attacking, it is attacking the numbers and not the people, because I think there's no question in my mind the people are all trying to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room or online who would like to speak? There'll be another chance at the end of the meeting. Seeing none. We'll continue on. Do you see Carl Fishman online?
No.
Okay. The old business on the agenda is to ask further questions of Carl Fishman, the town assessor. She's not here. We all discussed it a little bit last week when we got the information from her about the grand status of the grand list for 2025, October 2025, which feeds this budget. So let's wait and see if she comes in. If she doesn't, we can reschedule her. That's okay with you guys? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, thanks. So let's just move right ahead to, I think, we can talk about correspondence if there's anything more in the end. Let's go right ahead to you, Phil, the star of our show.
I don't know about star. Giver of information tonight, I guess. Thanks for listening. Obviously, I think Mike McCoo just said it. The Board of Ed budget this year is significant, and we know it's a big budget, and the board had some significant conversations in their full workshops around getting to where we are today. And there's really some specific reasons of why it's where it is. I did a snapshot for you, and I'm glad to walk through the entire budget for you as well. We started with some just district points of pride, because I think it's important. It's easy just to talk about numbers, but where's the money going is important. And so we have some new curriculum and programs, and we're seeing increases in student performance. The board talks about data every single board meeting they have. And so that's exciting to see the growth in our students and how those programs are being implemented is improving. And we've spent budget money on professional development. And so there's a payoff to that. We have a significant number of students in the middle school participating in sports, in clubs, which is fantastic. Students are connected to their schools, perform better. And so that's good. The HMS boys basketball team won. We've had complaints about we need to change our league, and our boys basketball team won championship for the second year in a row. Which is exciting, celebrating their success. As you know, cell phone pouches are banning cell phones is on current discussions for legislation for all schools in the state. And we've already done that at the board has a policy around it, but we have yonder pouches that students put their cell phones away during the day at the middle school, and it's gone very well. It's nice to see students talking to each other, and we can see the social growth there. 8th grade trip that's been a few years now that they're going to DC to kind of expand their horizons and outside of Wilmington. It's just an outstanding opportunity for our students. We have engaged our veterans in the community for assemblies, and we go to school on Veterans Day, so students are learning about Veterans Day instead of just having a day off with their families. And then we have a low cost, and this is grant funded, And it's a very low cost after school program for families in the elementary, middle schools. And I share those points of pride because it's everything from after school programs to professional development to, academic growth. It's all of those things are tied to budget dollars. And that's really how the budget is built. It's tied to the board goals. So the budget highlights, and I say this every year, I truly believe in building a needs-based budget and not just rolling things over. My staff knows when I do budget workshops with them that just because you had $500 last year doesn't mean you're going to get $500 this year. We go through what those expenditures are, and we back those up. This year's budget is really, I will target 3 different things. One is contractual agreements. That's really staff contracts. That's a big impact on the overall cost and increase. Special education outplacement tuition, we have 7 outplacements, and that is significant. I was talking to a superintendent from a neighboring district the other day, and she said, "You have 7?" And I said, "Yes, it's a lot, we know." And many of the students that we've never seen, because if they've moved from another district or more than 50% of those students came to us from a different district and were already in that placement. If we could bring students back programmatically and it'd be appropriate, we would do that. We do not have the ability to do that. And outplacement costs are exorbitant. I'm going to talk to you about that tonight. And then medical and dental insurance is the latest I've ever, this is my 8th year as superintendent. This is the latest I've ever experienced a renewal process. We don't have numbers yet from the insurance company, from Anthem. Typically, we get them sometime in January from our broker, and Anthem has held them. This impacts the town and the Board of Education. And so we have a 10% increase, not knowing where that's going to fall. What I'll tell you is our overall usage, which means how much people are accessing their health insurance and their dental insurance, is very good on the Board of Ed side, to the point that we expect that this is going to come down drastically. And if it doesn't, we will go out to bid. And I think that's across the board between the town and the schools. So I don't expect a 10% increase, in my opinion, will last. However, I have heard other districts receiving 40% renewals, increases for the renewals, which is just astronomical. So those 3 items are really the drivers. I will tell you that we expect in the 27-28 budget that there's going to be a $300,000. We expect nothing changes, which I say that always. Last time I presented to you, I think, or 2 years ago, we added 2 outplacements within a short period of time. We expect a $300,000 savings due to outplacement change in the 27-28 budget. And so we actually might have to go back to the state and get permission to break MBR, because I think it will impact that. Again, if nothing changes. And then I think it's always important for you to know, and I'm proud of this. There's a lot of districts that don't offset their budgets with all of their grant funds. And our REAP grant is really the only one. We get about $40,000 in REAP funds. And we apply, I think it's around 20 as an offset. Every other grant that we have is fully offset in this budget, and it's over, $670,000. So without those grants, it's a significant impact. You can see the program highlights on the back of that page. And I'm glad to go through and explain the overall budget document that's in front of you. And you can see where the increase is. And so what I'll do is just to walk you through this budget document. Is if you look at there's also a snapshot page on page 5. And that snapshot page gives you what our developmental budget assumptions are. How much is fuel? How much is, how many outplacements are there? We're making those assumptions that we know today. What are the increases for, transportation? We talk about what the shared services are. And we're currently looking at additional shared services. We're in the process of working with Ashford to maximize our dollars in our budget for special education funds. We're also looking at, and the board doesn't even know this, we're also talking about transportation because they own their own company and we're trying to find ways to bring costs down. So shared services within the town, but also looking out of the district. And then I always talk about there's unfunded mandates, and every year we have things that are written into legislation where there's no dollars that come with it, but you're required to do it and it costs money. And there's a boatload of them. So there's just some listed there. You can see the projected enrollment on page 7. That is based upon the Prouder study for 26-27 and the number of classrooms in the very last column on the right is what we're expecting for next year. That's where we are, the number of sections we budget. So you can see 2 sections all the way through 2nd grade. And when we hit those 40 and 44 sections at 3rd and 4th, we go into 3 sections. And the middle school model has 3 sections. So you see those 3 sections all the way through. We currently have 386 students as of January 9th. That's what was on here. That's where we were at. And so we are probably going to be we expect to be in the 370 range once the 8th grade moves off and kindergarten comes in. That's where we're estimating. But you can see the enrollment there. You can see on the next page the 20-year history of where we've been, and we kind of had a big drop off. We leveled off for a little while, and then we're back in that 380 range where we've been for a few years now. Questions before I get into any of the programs?
Well, just on the numbers you're going over now, the kindergarten is significantly larger than the other years. I mean, not significantly, it's 48, right? Or that's first? No,
That's the Prouder enrollment study. I don't think we're going to hit 48.
Okay.
I think it's overstated. And the board lived this a couple of years ago where we actually added a kindergarten teacher because late in the summer we budgeted for 2 and having numbers of 28, 30, and then suddenly we had 38, 40. And when we start getting to that 40 number, there's no pairs in those rooms. It's just the teacher. When you're talking about 5-year-olds, you need that support. And so the board had added another section at that time. We don't believe that 48 number is going to come to fruition from what information we have today, but it's still early. We're talking about registration process now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So there are 10 programs that make up the budget. The first program is Center School. You can see all the staffing that's in there. And when you see the 0.33 or the 0.165, there's certain positions that cross programs. So there's a secretary at Center School that might do some work on transportation. So transportation is program 4. So a portion of their salary is in program 4. You can see in the back of the budget document the full staffing list. And the staffing list includes like the bus company, paraprofessionals, teachers, administrators, our sub-caller, the business office. We include all those people to give you a sense that you can't run a district without those people. And so, some of them are not necessarily our employees, but like we have Novus on site 1 day a week. We include that because you need IT. And so we consider that as part of the total staffing package. When you look through the salaries total that's in there, you can see that's the jump. I mentioned that as one of the factors in the beginning. That could change over the summer, but we base our budget on the status of the teachers we have now. If we had a known retiree, we would adjust that down. This is the group of teachers we have today that if they returned at next year, this is what the budget's built on. Okay. And so it's an exact number. It's not like, hey, is there extra in there? There's not. It's based upon the current group of people we have. Insurance is built the same way. Purchase services.
Phil, do you want to do questions as we go?
Oh yeah, however you want. Stop.
Okay, so on that line, it's like 7.9% up. Can you talk a little bit about how it landed there? Is it because
Sure.
like last year we were at 2.5 and not pay wise, but
yeah, so it's not just contract. So if someone leaves, right, and they're making 60,000 and we budgeted 60,000, and then the best candidate that comes in is making 82, the Board of Ed eats that. They don't come back and ask for more money. So, and we budget based upon, again, what we know today. So this to me is part of the increase is contracts, right? If they go up a step, they make more money.
Mhm.
But also part of this could be if a teacher that left that was making 50 and a teacher that came in was hired was making 92, that's a big increase. So that's also a portion of that jump. If that makes sense.
Okay, so there haven't been a lot of situations the other way where you had a highly paid, experienced person retire, say, and
And
you hired on them, sometimes you do
And
that.
inflow, sometimes it works that way
Okay.
for sure. Yeah.
But this is it the contract itself that, how
So
much is
the contract is probably a
itself?
4% increase.
What is it?
I think it's a 4. It's around a 4. Which I think most of the contracts in the Board of Ed are in that realm. And they're marketable compared to what's in the region.
Mhm.
But the additional dollars there, when you're looking, it could be a variety of those things.
So like on this first program that we're talking about, I'm
Yep.
seeing it, and I think I saw it as a trend throughout. You're in your purchase services or supplies, you're either down or flat and everything. So you're trying to take as much out of there as you can to.
It's not that I'm taking much out of there as I can. When I say needs based on if it's a need, it's in there.
Okay.
It just happens to be that this, and I'll talk to the supplies. I can speak to it now. Like you can see the decrease in supplies. It's not because salaries were up, so we got to bring some money down. The supplies are down because we had budgeted for something that was a one-shot deal. We needed to buy it once.
Okay.
And that was, once it's $5,000 and it comes off, it comes off. It happens to be that the other increases didn't offset that totally. So it's a decrease this year from 45 to 43. It's not because salaries were up, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Okay.
Bill, I have a question about
Yeah.
the insurance. In another department with personnel, they had a situation where they would offer the worker a stipend in lieu of
A waiver, yeah.
having the
Mhm.
having the coverage. Is that ever of interest to any of your
It's
employees?
in our contracts.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's built into our overall insurance number. So if we have, 55 teachers and 20 of them take the waiver, it's huge savings to the town because the waiver, I think on the teacher side is $1,800. The cost of insurance for a family plan is $30,000 before, if the board pays about 80% of that and the employee pays about 20. The superintendent in the nearby town that I was just talking to also said that their family plan is $44,000. Our family plan is 30. So we talk about the cost of insurance really impacting the budget and our usage being good, it helps us, but the stipend also helps us.
Yeah.
In the insurance, and it's in program 10, when we get to that bottom line of what that number is, it includes all of the people that take the stipends, all the people that take employee only, employee plus one, or family, and that total cost is built into it.
Okay.
Sherry, is that offered to town employees too that way? Or is that a school?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
I think they have a waiver
think so.
too.
I think they might.
Yeah.
Do you know, Pete?
I
Are
a
you?
lot of our people just aren't offered it, so it doesn't matter. They're out in the cold.
Mhm.
They don't get a stipend or insurance. They're just done. So
I just thought maybe
Yeah.
you scrubbed your memory.
I tried hard. I tried really hard.
Also, Bill, to answer a bit of that question too, the staff is surveyed prior to the creation of this document. And so that helps estimate kind of where we were gonna be.
So if someone says, hey, I'm gonna waive insurance next year, we calculate that in. We only have one, and I'm not in the insurance, but I'm talking about it. We only have one placeholder for insurance, and that's if someone decides has a qualifying event mid-year or at any point in the year, they need to take insurance. It's there. If I have a teacher who leaves and takes insurance, doesn't take insurance, gets the waiver, and then we hire someone and they do take insurance, that's the placeholder, it's gone.
So just for the way the meeting runs. I just want to point out, Lisa Pascuzzi isn't here tonight. She's our recording secretary. So she's going off the Zoom and the recording. So would you identify yourself and your role?
I'm Brianna Ross. I'm the chair of the Wellington Board of Education.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for having us.
So Phil,
Yeah,
so, every year the classes keep getting smaller because the student populations get smaller each year, but it seems like staff stays the same each year. So, you were saying that, this year that there might be a possible savings if, say, a staff member leaves or something.
sure.
Do you have any staff that's coming up for retirement?
We looked at it and we don't. We look at those just to see if sometimes a buyout is something that helps you save money. And I think there's only one or two people, and then it went down to me, and I'm not ready to retire. It's not. We have a lot of people that are hitting around their 20th year in their career. There's a big bubble there, but they're not near retirement. Yeah. It doesn't mean someone won't leave. There's people sometimes leave to go to another district, and sometimes that results in savings and sometimes it doesn't.
What is your average turnover, in a given fiscal year? Do
Only,
you always have a couple of people leave and sometimes more?
yeah, it's not
One year
many.
it seemed like we had quite a few.
Yeah, but it's typically not many. We're talking about a couple people a year.
All right.
And it's not typically retirement. It's going someplace else where they make $10,000 more.
Right.
The only other item I'll point out on center school on page 10, I want to make sure you understand the adjusted. And so someone doesn't look at the budget on the building maintenance side and go, you budgeted $104,000. That's adjusted. So when the Board of Ed had funds in 24-25 at the end of the year and they did the playground without accessing CIP or the repair fund, Donna, business office, makes the adjustment in the budget. And so we're not asking obviously for the 104. You can see that the approved of 25-26 was 34,000, and we have a requested increase there. We go back and look at what those costs are in contracts and make sure it's aligned, and that's what that 36,000 is. And that takes all those inspections, oil tank inspections, fire alarms, the lawn care portion that we pay into. It's all those inspections. You have some contractual things that fall into the other. The conference and travel is a contractual thing. It's in the administrator's contract, as is dues and fees. You can see the budget total increase there, and again, tie it to staffing. Program 2 is a very similar picture. So when you look at program 2, you can see that there's again the 100,000 increase in salaries. The purchase services, and Steph, you're spot on. Like it's basically a flat number. It's $1,000 increase. The educational supplies on Hall are up 23,000, and the reason that's up is because of the $20,000 is in there for Chromebook replacement. So that's one area we're trying to get onto a cycle to replace our technology, and that doesn't keep up with it. But we're trying to put some money in so that we can start replacing Chromebooks as do basically a grade at a time. So that's about 50 Chromebooks. Is that in that $20,000? The other item that's new under the equipment, we have folding chairs in one of our classrooms in the health room. And the new principal said, I don't think that's acceptable. I think we should actually have some real chairs in there that are meant to be full time. So she put $3,600 into the budget. I think it's a good move. I will tell you, we shop around on items like this. It's not a lot of money, but school furniture is expensive. We get the Gov Deals auctions. It's where we bought the stove for Hall School recently. And it came out of the Wyndham School. It was like a couple years old. And because they were doing the renovation, we got it very, very inexpensive, and we're looking for chairs on there as well. So
Okay. Could you talk about, why the whole school payrolls percentage wise? It looks like it's lower. I don't think it's I don't think the contracts vary probably, but the, the overall bottom line payroll is like 4.6% up.
again, it just
On
depends on the
center,
person leaving.
it's like, so, what's
It's
that?
because it's a person leaving. So
Okay,
if I have a teacher who left Hall School making $92,000, they're on top step in a teacher's contract, and the person I bring in is 60,000.
Mhm.
There's $30,000
Okay.
right there. That's the reason.
thank you.
Yep. It's not, it's not additional staff or anything like that. It's the contract, and it's who comes in and who leaves. The back side of that program on page 12 is basically the same thing. I did reduce, and I want to make sure I speak to this. The building maintenance amount is lower on the Hall School side, and it's not because we're not taking care of things. It's because I went back through the bills and looked at the projects that were done with those funds, and it was there's enough money there to cover it, but also we have a new state grant called the District Repair Improvement Program grant. That I just learned today is we're supposed to get our money by June 30th of 2026. A little late. We're supposed to get more information this year because we're hoping that funds that are right now are going to help offset the repairs we've done this year. So we have done, basically we're counting on those funds as an offset next year for repairs, which is why that number's down.
Okay.
If that grant goes away, that goes back up. The other items that are on there, again, contractual, whether it's stipends or, conferences or dues, things like that. The overall program increase, 5.26%. Program 3 is a biggie, and I'll get into more towards the end of this document into the outplacement, but we apply basically every special education grant dollar that we get as an offset. So when you see all those percentages there, 0.05, 0.95 certified IDEA B grant, those are grant funds paying for a full position. The board has always been creative in how we service students for special education, which is legally required. Speech and language is a shortage area. It is hard to find speech and language teachers. And so we actually had one of our internal paraprofessionals going to school for this to become a speech and language assistant. And so instead of having 2 speech teachers, which the district used to have, we now have 1 certified teacher and 1 speech and language assistant, which is a fraction of what the cost is. So how do we save money? Those are the types of things that we do. A portion of the secretary at center school is for special education work, which is why you see the 0.25, the 0.25 there. We are over 20% of our population is identified with special education needs. And so you have the full-time administrator there who manages all the IEPs, all the legal documentation, all of the meetings. Her day beginning to end is full. And you can see that there's another line that I wanted to point out that went down. Again, you talk the OTPT, talk about a person that has left and a new person coming in. There's a change in pay rate. You can see that demonstrated there. So the drop is still needs-based. It was 79,000. It's not that we cut, hours. It went to 62,000.
Phil, did I hear that right? 20% of our school population in this town is special needs.
It's almost statewide is around that number.
Where if we, sorry.
It's a range of
Trying to speak.
how that's defined though,
Yeah, I
correct?
realize
I mean, it's a range of.
A range of identifications.
Yeah, or amount of help that's needed for a student, obviously, because.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. You have some students who, again, outplacement, that's probably the highest need, right? To a student could be in special education with general service hours for, an hour, a day of, or speech and language only, things like that. The services are run the gamut of how much they need. But yes, it's 20%.
Is that a great variance from before COVID?
I would say no. I think part of the variance is years ago they started something called response to intervention. It then changed names to scientific research-based interventions, and we're collecting more data than we ever have on students. And they use that data to identify learning disabilities, and if it impacts their daily life, and more kids are qualifying for special education services. So.
Is it just the vagaries of staffing and everything that is the reason why you're going down on paras, one a year for the last 3 years? Is that a
Every
budget
one of our
cutting?
paraprofessionals is assigned to a student.
Okay,
So we don't have, there's no extra. So if Marcia says, based upon what I know today, when we submit the budget, we have this number of students that need paraprofessionals, that's what we budget for. It's not that we're trying to cut them because we budget exactly what we need.
okay.
And you can see we're actually down a pair. It's hard to see in this.
No, it is that you've gone down, like in the 3 years you've got here from fiscal year 25.
Correct.
You were at 18, then 17, and this year is 16.
But if you look at the paraprofessional line under purchase services, you can see that there's a dash there now next to the 48,000.
Yes.
We had one that was contracted out, and it was cheaper for us to bring that a person in, and so we don't contract out at all now. It's less expensive. There's not a significant increase here in the salaries. This group has not changed drastically over the last year. What you will see in the purchase service side is the outplacement tuition has increased significantly from 871,000 to 1.1 million. That is the 7th outplacement. We went from 6 to 7. You can see that the school choice special education is not an outplacement, but if a student goes to a magnet school and requires significant services, we are required to pay those services. There's a big drop next year because of needs changed, which is great. In the end, though, the increase is having an additional outplacement is expensive. Transportation did not go up much simply because it works out of where we're transporting and shared transportation with other towns. I will go through, actually, this might just.
Could I, I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
just
go for
want,
it.
before you move on, so I was just kind of looking at, well, I was kind of doing my own math percentage wise, but if, I just want to point out for everyone that you've got you have all the offsets in here, but one of them is 100,000 this year out of non-lapsing and 100,000 next year in 26, 27 out of, so if you, I mean, it's one thing if there's grant offset, but if it's non-lapsing, talk a little bit about what that does to you guys on the BOE managing the budget and you day-to-day, Phil.
So I can talk about all of those grants. I'll work from the bottom up. So the non-lapsing fund is the board's budget. When they have money at the end of the year, they can roll into an account to a certain amount of money. And that money in this budget is an offset of $100,000 that is directly tied to paying for a portion of a student who's in an outplacement location. And so you're gonna correct me if I say this wrong. I'm pretty sure I'm right. I believe our budget right now looks like it's like $260,000 in our non-lapsing account, but that doesn't take into this, so it brings it to 160. All right. And we also have a $40,000 offset that we have to do this year as the board for a position that brings it to 120. And that balance of around the 120 is how we're trying to figure out if we can dig out of the hole this year. And so that money is typically used for big projects such as capital projects. Emergency, something comes up, you need the funds, or it's this. And so there's not $269,000 now because the money's coming out automatically. The same thing happened last year.
Yeah, if you weren't applying your non-lapsing, which
It'd be up $100,000.
it would be 350,000 about. So that's like more like a 12.6% increase in the,
Oh, you're talking about the difference. Yes.
yeah, the
Totally.
difference.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that hurt us this year, and this is the other grants, the IDA are pretty straightforward. The other thing that hurt us this year, there's letters that are circulating. There's a letter that you have tonight that we're trying to have multiple people sign. The cost of special education, and particularly outplacements and transportation, is astronomical. I don't feel like it's regulated as much as it should be. I'm not advocating for those things because that's what a student needs. What I'm advocating for is reasonable cost for a district. And there's some solutions that we have that was in the letter that I think I shared with you. But you can see one of the pain points that the board has this year is we offset the budget. And if you look at the 25-26 column for grant offset excess cost of $409,000, that's what we planned for 25-26. And what happened was the state didn't budget enough money. And so we're only getting $361,000. This is the first time this has happened to us. And so we're down 50 grand this year. And based upon conversations with the board and not feeling like that's going to change with the state, they didn't feel it was prudent to go back to the 409. The 361 is what we expect we should see again next year. Realistically, if we were to get what we're supposed to get 90% of everything above our 4.5 times per pupil, which I'll explain in a few minutes. But we're not. We're getting like 70. And the state is not doing their job, one, from a budgeting standpoint, two, from holding these agencies accountable for how much these placements cost. And looking at ways for small districts where someone moves in and it's another $225,000 bill to try and maintain that. I'll ask you to turn to, if you go to page 30,
yeah, where you have the
I
example.
can walk you through how that excess cost is calculated. I think this is really important. And I'll start with my spiel for the importance of trying to get to one building in this town. Your per pupil cost right now at around $27,000 per student, includes those 7 students, obviously, so it brings it up. Number one, and number two, being in 2 buildings brings it up. And so between those 2 factors, if we could get the per pupil down, which it will come down some because of the savings next year is the start of this over the next few years, it helps you. And the reason why is a district is responsible for the first 4.5 times your per pupil expenditure. So the math basically works like this. If your per pupil cost is $27,000, you multiply that times 4.5, you have to pay the first $121,000 for that student. They could be in district or out of district. You are responsible for the first 121. Everything after that, you are eligible for excess cost. So in the example there, you see the student is the total cost between transportation and placement, we said, is $210,000. If you subtract the 121, which again is the 4.5 times, you see a balance of $88,000. That's what's eligible for reimbursement from excess cost. We should get 90% of that legally. We are not. We're getting 70, and we're actually getting less than that. So if you see that 88,000 times 70, that's what we're getting back. And so you're adding the 2 costs together. So you pay the first 121, plus you're paying the additional 26,531, and that student is costing the district $148,000. We have 7 of those. And I'll be honest with you, 210,000 is low. We have several students that are well above that. A residential placement can cost you $500,000. You don't have any there, but I'm telling you that this is something that the board is advocating for. You have a letter in front of you that we're sending to our state reps and legislators, and senators, that they need this. This is, every district is screaming this as loud as they can. This has to change because you can see the huge impact it has on budgets. 7 outplacements in a district this size is wild. It should be a couple. 3, like that's typical what you would see for our the size of our student population. 7 is a lot.
You all saw the letter, right? I shared it with you. So good letter.
So if you talk to your state reps, please share that.
I know this is something Tammy's always working on.
Always, yes. And I don't miss a chance, like anytime I get information, that's who the letter's going to. But with my superintendent's groups, we are all trying to we signed an advocacy letter that is just from a bunch of towns in the region that are experiencing the same things. And there's got to be some solution to help districts out.
We should all join together and file a class action lawsuit. That's what they should do.
You mean all the towns?
Yeah.
The idea of the letter.
I don't think this is the struggle. I don't think you're wrong. And it's frustrating because we have to operate, right? We have the 7th outplacement this year and we have to operate within our budget. We're trying to find a way to dig out of it. The state just says you get less. And I don't think that's right.
And meanwhile, the ECS money's flatlined.
Yeah.
And withheld for a while.
So,
and just to be clear, it's state requirements that are driving outplacements, right? It's not just like the school or the district that is saying, no, the student has to be outplaced.
So you have a requirement to be able to provide educational services to that student within your home district. If you do not have the ability to do that, you have to find the least restrictive environment, and that's federal. And there's only so many placements. They're trying to look at ways to keep students inside. So I told in district, one of the things in the letter that we're looking at is, if you could get excess cost earlier by only paying like 2.5 times. So say instead of 4.5, it's 2.5, and then you're eligible for excess cost, but only if you can keep that student in district. That might help us because the cost, you might have to hire your own school psychologist, your own social worker, your own paraprofessional, just to maintain that student's program in a space. But it would be cheaper to do that than have them in outplacement. So we're trying to pitch some ideas, but again, it's got to be got to change.
Okay. You want to go back to transportation?
Yep. So program 4 on page 15, pretty straightforward. This is our bus services. A portion of our secretarial work is tied to transportation routes, solving problems. So there's some funds there. We had an increase in our bus contract. Basically the other items, I increased the sporting events because looking at what we've actually spent, we were under budgeting, and so I increased that to actual. Then same thing with the after school activities and clubs. I applied more grant money, and so the grants is covering balance. The one that is new there that you see, and I think I mentioned this last year, we have I didn't mention this last year. I remember talking to Jeff about this. We have a legal obligation for a student who is in district and becomes homeless and has to live someplace else to keep them in our home district. So I'll give you the example. They lose their apartment in Wellington. They move to, and I'm totally making this up, they move to Berlin because that's where they can live with an aunt, uncle, whatever it is. We have a legal obligation to pay for their transportation to get them back to Wellington to educate them. Typically, that cost is shared between the district that they're living in and the local district. I'll tell you that this could cost you $30,000 for one student. So we've been tracking this. We put in $8,000 and we have a PO this year that's not budgeted for 16,000. So this is becoming more and more, it's happening more often, and it's another issue. Transportation is so expensive. It's the reason I'm talking to Ashford. They have some of their own vans. They own their own buses, and trying to see if there's a less expensive way for us to transport and still meet our requirements.
So that the student would just go to, in your example, they wouldn't go to school at Newington. And they put the kid through all that transportation to come back here rather than go to school. That's outrageous.
So there are a few occasions where it becomes too far and they will change the placement. But legally, and it's federal.
So to get to school on time, they have to get up at what time in the morning to get on it?
If they have an hour ride,
It's absolutely ridiculous.
they got to leave their houses.
Yeah.
And you're paying for a van oftentimes for one student. Sometimes you can't find transportation because it's so hard to find. If anybody wants to start their own business, good business model. Sometimes we have to pay the parent mileage because it's the only way we can get them. And it actually works out for the district when we pay mileage because it's
Cheaper.
yeah.
So how long are we obligated to do that?
Good question. So typically it's within the year, but there's no timeline.
It's ridiculous.
Bruce, we will tell families like, okay, it's been 6 months. You're going in the summer, it might be time. It doesn't look like things are going to change. You may consider enrolling in the district you're in, but they have every legal right to continue that. If they could get permanent housing, it ends, right? But the permanent housing, even if I converted my house and I had a basement that had a bathroom and that was where they're going to be for the rest of their lives, if it wasn't considered permanent, you're stuck.
Or if they're living with their parents or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. We're out and we work with the families because obviously they're going through a challenging time. And the concept behind it is not that the kids' world has already been rocked probably. And we're trying to minimize that by keeping them in their home district. But there's a cost to that. Again, unfunded mandate, here's an example.
Mhm.
So you can see the 3% increase in program 4. Program 5 is health services. It's our nurses. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. You can see that the increase is really contractual. It's out of the salaries. All the other items are basically relatively consistent. Program 6 is curriculum and development. We have spent some significant dollars over the last probably 4 years on professional development. And when we were changing programs and doing new things with curriculum, we spent some significant dollars training staff. And now we have been able to cut that down again. It's needs-based. And we have our internal people providing training. And so that it's an added benefit. Obviously, we have some people that have been trained. If they leave, we might have to spend some money to train another person to be the trainer. But that's why that program is down. It's not because we were trying to balance other things. It's where you see the teacher workshop in-house, the outside conferences, and it's down because of those things. Keep going. Program 7 is utilities. Here's like a celebration. This program being down and some of these rates is great. Water is down a little bit. Our electricity, we left flat. Looking at our usage, that rate is locked in. The supply may go up, but we believe we're gonna have enough money there. So I left it flat. The Siemens lease, the energy performance contract, is in year 13 of 17. And that goes up a little bit each year. I think the final year in year 17, I think it's around 53 or $54,000, and then that will be gone. That's a requirement. And we locked in heating oil, the earliest we've ever locked it in. Donna grabbed it pretty early and said it's down. It's significant savings off of what we paid last year, and we locked it in. So we contract for a certain amount of fuel, and that's diesel for our buses and heating oil. And we locked that in very early.
For the town too, right?
We do it together, yeah. So agree on that together. So seeing that decrease obviously impacts the budget. So program decreased, it's like a celebration. Program 8 is operations and maintenance. I promised you last year that I would put the facilities manager back in, and I did not. When we talk about needs, this is a need, but I think the board is also very aware of where this budget's at a 6.8. There's still a need for a facilities manager, but what it does to this budget, it's over $100,000 between insurance and the position. And so we did not put it back in this year. The salaries that are in there are a combination of our custodians and our maintenance supervisors. We do not have a lead for the district. That would have been a facilities director, manager. So there's basically a lead. They get a stipend to each school to manage those after hour things. Summer custodians went up. I looked at what we were actually paying, and so it increased that. It's based upon what's there. Slight increase in the current hour property insurance. Get those supplies flat, and there's a slight mileage increase. But you can see the increase here is mainly in the contractual rate for our custodians. Program 9 is system-wide support. This is my office and lots of purchase services. So my administrative assistant in there has retired or is retiring in March, and we hired Brianna Knight. So Brianna will be filling in that new role, and she came in at a lower rate. So you can see the decrease in that salary line. And then the overall purchase service line, I'm going to go through a bunch of these. The magnet school tuition is students who decide to go to magnet schools. We're required to pay whatever the rate is. Some of those magnet schools are free. Some of them cost $5,000 or $6,000. I believe we're down to 3 students remaining next year, and we budget exactly what we know. The teacher retirement valuation is a program that an actuarial valuation that we are required to do every other year. When we have it, the full evaluation, it costs a lot of money. We're in an off year next year to celebrate that. We increased legal fees a little bit based upon usage. You can see the other copiers. I'm not going to go through IT and the licenses and Novus. We have a multi-year contract with Novus. We have an army behind us. That is our portion that we pay. The town government also has a portion that they pay. For what we pay and the services that we get, you're looking at that would be one person with benefits for IT. And we get an army there, whether it's security, whether it's networking, whatever it is, they do all our tickets. They're on site 4 days a week, one person, but whatever we need, the tickets or services 24 hours a day. And I will advocate for that all day long.
Is their contracts up though high teens or something percentage that 113 to 120,000? Is that
they go back when this was approved last year? We went back and they look at their number of service hours. They don't bill us beyond what. So say we have a terrible attack and they have to be on site. There's not extra hours built in. It's within our hours. If we want to do a special project and we plan it, it's not considered to be part of that service. They would give us a quote for that. But yeah, it's they were looking at their number of hours they were actually spending with us, it was more than what they were. Their balance, I'll say, what they needs to be some profit in what they're paying their people. And so that's where the increase is coming from. Cybersecurity monitoring, we have to have as part to have cyber security insurance, so that's there. School messenger is how we get out our information in our website. So we send out notifications. Power School is how we host all of our stuff, for attendance, grades, all of that stuff. The school assessment is down from a couple years ago. What else could I talk about? Raptors, how we screen visitors when they come in, their ID is scanned to see if they have any offenses or they shouldn't be in a school or working with kids. We upped the board clerk again. We tried to do minutes out of my office and drop that down $600. And it's back up to 1,200. We are looking to see if there's any AI services to see if in the future that's something that honestly all boards should consider in this town, because there's some services out there. Some are costly, and it would be a wash. And so we're trying that out on some of our subcommittees, but not on our full meetings at this point in time. I think the rest I'm just going to fly right by unless you have any questions about what's there. Overall purchase services is down some.
What's the deal on public safety officers going?
So we a few years ago, we started contracting, having them come into our bigger events. One, to walk the hall. So, if there's anybody that shouldn't be where they shouldn't be, or if you have an emergency. We had a car fire in the middle of a performance a few years ago, and it's important to have public safety officers on site. Alex has built that into his hours of what is normally on their pay. This buffer is in case it's outside of their hours.
Okay.
So when we have a full, large concert, promotion ceremony, lots of people in the audience, it's hot in the gym, somebody passes out, you want those people there for support right away. And so we have some funds budgeted for that.
Yeah.
And then I'm just gonna skip to program 10, is fringe and subs. So this is how we pay our substitutes. We looked at what was used. We did decrease that line some based upon usage. The other items that are in there are employee benefits, medical and dental. Remember that you can't just do a 10% increase off of the approved number from 25-26 because it's a different group of people. The 10% increase is off of our current staff of who takes insurance and who waives. And then the other items that are on there, Social Security tax is what you pay based upon salaries. You've got workers' comp on there. You got unemployment on there. And the TSA is the last item, and that's a contractual item. So overall, you have in the budget document, you have the information on the programs, program 1, program 2, program 3. They all have write-ups where I have administrators. You have some more information on the grant offsets. You have the full staffing list. And on the very last page, you have where the budgets have been under my leadership since 2018 and where they've landed. And so our average is around 3, even though the average, when you think about 3, most of those years it's under 2. And then you have a couple of years that were outliers. This budget is, again, tied to those very specific things. Contracts, it's tied to outplacement, and it's tied to insurance. The one thing I will say is 2.5% is about $23,000 on the Board of Ed side. So the insurance numbers went from a 10% increase to 7.5%. You know that we will come back to you if we get that information in a week, and we will reduce this budget $23,000. If it comes down 5%, we'll take off $46,000. That's just the expectation of how that's negotiated. if we get that information, it will be where that will come from, and that we're upfront with that with you. So a 0 would be, you know, a nice number to see. I advocate, I think we should have a decrease based upon great usage, so. And you want to add?
Are there any general questions or specific questions? Paul?
Bill, how's your gut feel how this is gonna be received by the voters who put in front of them with a almost $700,000 increase?
Yeah, I agree, it's high. Looking at how the average, I think, in the budgets that I've seen in the state right now, the average for all of the budgets that are going to the CASBO document, they're over 5. I think everyone is living this right now. Staffing costs and insurance costs and special ed costs are the killers. I think multiple towns are living that. I think our voters are in the same boat. I hope people support it. I hope people value the time that the board has taken to go through it, fully understanding a 6.8 is really high. It's really high and I don't like throwing out numbers, but you know, 8% being over $100,000 now. To get into where you were last year, you're talking about lots of positions. This isn't, and because you don't get dollars out of a budget like this, out of supply money. It comes, it comes out of people. And that's the challenge of that. So, the board will have to discuss that if it gets to that, but the challenge here is, for people to understand the why, where we are, and are we doing things in our power to save money? We are. And are we advocating on the legislative side? We are. Because those are things that they're out of especially on the special ed side, it's out of our control. I'd love to come and sit in front of you next year, gosh, I would love a 0, to be honest with you, or, less than that. Because that special ed, those dollars it's unreal.
Yeah, I guess we gotta see how it rolls out with the other budgets and what the overall package looks like at the end, but this is huge.
Yeah, it is.
I appreciate like the letter that you all put together and what we're doing as a district, but I am kind of wondering too about the power of many as far as districts combining together, particularly in our sort of socioeconomic category, and making a stronger pitch to the state. I don't know if that's possible. It takes a lot of collaboration.
That is what the first letter and it's specific to special education, but that's the first letter that went out.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a copy of this, but the first letter that went out was from basically came out of my superintendent's group, which is what we call Ursa NASA. And this was signed by board chairs, superintendents, and sometimes if there was a selectman or something like that, but Hebron, Killingly, Chaplin, Region School District 11, Hampton, Basra, Thompson, Stafford. This is every superintendent in this area saying something has to be done with these costs because everyone's feeling that pinch. You start.
Yeah, and I'm wondering about the state, just going from what I'm reading, what I'm following, feeling like they need to plug the gap on some federal money that has fallen off, like particularly in WIC and programs like that. States talking about augmenting. So it seems like it puts more stress on education cost sharing and the stuff that's already falling short, pilot money, that kind of thing. So it seems like a good time to,
Am I allowed to say?
Yeah, I was gonna ask if any of the board members have any,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does anybody know about Region 19? Any thoughts?
Any intel?
I do.
As a matter of fact.
Look over my shoulder.
We have not had our official budget kickoff. That is on Tuesday. I got my budget book the other day. The region budget is looking like a 3.7% increase, but the cost to Wellington, 2.6% increase.
Okay,
$4,985,494.
That's the extra for us. That's how much extra,
How much extra?
yeah, from what it was.
I have to do that math, it's about 140,000, 130,000.
okay.
And that's at the start.
2.6. And actually, yeah, we haven't even discussed anything yet, so that might actually go there.
So my perspective on the outplacements is that it's unfair that that's in your budget. When it's really, if we look at all education, we need to include Region 19 in that total number, if we're gonna also include the outplaced kids. And so because we're talking about educating kids, no matter which school they're going to, what's happening. So I think it's unfair that that big bill falls anywhere in anyone's budget. It's almost like we should look at that just as a separate thing that we actually can't do anything about. But I just think it's unfair to think that you're going to be able to cut your way out of that bill that we never can even plan on. And at the same time, we try to balance with Region 19 with the same way. If it's a bad year there, then we also ask you to cut your way out of that. That isn't your fault. Like, it's nobody's fault, but
One of the
So
things that. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
so you're advocating for more
Well, I think-
realization from the state, or what are you?
I think the if we could have a lens of looking at it as the total cost of education in the town with these things separated out, that at least helps us understand what's driving some of these big costs.
And just since we're traveling in this area, Region 19 as well, they're putting together a meeting of the main member towns, Ashford and us, and to talk about how the calculation is done. And I think doing it more as with the theory of doing it more as a consistent number, which has its pluses and cons, I think. So they've invited the Board of Finance chairs and the superintendent. Are you gonna be
I've
there?
not seen that.
And the first selectman, I know that.
We have participated in some of this.
And you have.
Partnerships.
Yeah, I've been pretty involved in that.
That's been going on for at least a year.
I don't know if you want to talk about the letter too, Christina.
Yeah.
One of the
Did you
things that the latest letter, that is trying to get, board chair to sign for Board of Finance, Board of Ed, and Selectmen. One of the ideas, and this is what's impacting us this year, and it's not the first year it's happened, is that trying to come up with an idea that when a student moves into your district mid-year and they're outplaced and you haven't budgeted for it, it just makes total sense for the money to follow the kid. So, and I'm making this up. If a kid moved, I'll use Berlin again. If a kid moved from Berlin into Wellington, Berlin budgeted for that student and Wellington did not. Why not just have that money follow that kid for the rest of the year?
Yeah.
And then we would be responsible for that. And there's years where you're gonna quote unquote win, but there's no year where you're gonna get hit with a shortfall.
Because you already have
budgeted
it
for it.
budgeted, yeah.
And it's just like, that's just, I don't know. It's,
And probably the same paperwork too. I'm guessing that in each of these instances, there's a lot you have to.
you still have to, you still have to have PPTs, but it's the impact through cost. Some of these huge districts with monster budgets might be able to, take a student in and it's not a big deal, but smaller districts, which is a lot of districts in the state, can't.
Right.
And so why not have the money follow? And that's one of the items that's on there as a potential solution, is just that. So trying to give some, not just to complain about it in the letter, but to say, here's a few solutions that may help defray the cost of special education, for districts such as Wellington. Because we know we're the large puzzle piece in your, deliberations for all the budgets.
It also seems like they're using the opposite logic. When they talk about homeless student and how we fund that versus how you fund, a new special placement student.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, you're right. They could sync that up, couldn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, unless there's any discussion on the board, suggest, against it. I'm inclined to just sign this right now because they want to get this letter out to, our representative and our senator both.
Do you need a vote?
Do we need a vote?
I don't know. But
I don't know. It's,
let's make a motion just to be official. I'll make a
Okay, sure.
motion to empower Steph Summers to sign this letter on behalf of the Board of Finance.
Second.
Jason seconds, Christina moved. Is there any discussion? I have my pen ready. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thanks. Can I do this to Phil? And he can make progress. Or Brian. Okay. Thank you all, and you guys wanted to say something, please do.
I wanted to say something.
Identify yourself, please.
Jen McCood, Clipper Springs Drive, sorry, I should know this by now. Member of the Board of Ed as well. I wanted to just, put one last, statement out there that, this group has worked really hard on going line by line through this budget and understanding and knowing exactly what we're asking for. Bill has done an amazing job kind of narrowing things down and really honing in on what will get our students to the next level. You had mentioned, what will the voters think of the budget? I would urge people on this committee, just because we're in front of you guys right now, if people are asking you questions or people have concerns about the budget, there's so many resources that folks have at their disposal to ask those questions, to have the people that know the answers, tell them what the answers are, direct them where to find things. The thing that I want to, not caution, that's a strong word, but to ask people not to just look at the number and say, no way, that's too big. Because as we've discussed a lot this evening, a good portion of this budget is out of our control. And we are taking steps to try and alleviate that by the letter, by the discussions that we've had as a board, that we can't go through this year after year and say, this is not sustainable, and then talk about it the next year. So I hope that as a town, we can look at not just this budget, all of our budgets, and know that there's really nothing in there that can be cut that won't sacrifice student progress or student success. So that's,
Thank you. Anne? Would you?
Yes, Anne Grosjean from Birch Meadow Lane. Just an example of how it's affecting us this year. We've had to have, I hope I'm correct in saying this, but I believe we've had a budget freeze where staff has not been able to spend money without special, they can appeal to Bill and say this is really, really important. So the fact that it's affecting all of our administrators and staff and children, the money that we allocated to the schools to spend on the children is being frozen so that we can pay these outplacements this year. The outplacements we're talking about are in next year's budget, but we also have them in this year's budget. So something else to think about.
Yeah, and you're speaking as a member of the, right? Because we're not in present to speak yet, but we will. Yeah. We're going to go to that after we hear from the assessor. So in fact, you all can stick around for the pertinent issue of a flat grand list.
That's a huge problem.
What's that?
That's a huge problem, especially that it makes all this stuff unsustainable as the years goes by without any kind of development in the town. That's what we need to be looking at.
Thank you very much. And did you have anything else you guys wanted to? Okay. I don't want to cut anyone short on the big moment, and thank you for all coming for this, and feel free to stick around if you want, or slip out. Is that okay? Moving on to talk to Cara about the, okay, thank you. And this is in regard to her memo she sent us last week, that on the October 2025 grand list results, showing that it's pretty flat. I think it's up 0.02%. So, Cara, there, I don't know if there's anything that you, first of all, does everybody know her? You're right. Thank you for coming, yes. I know you have a day job. I heard that.
Yeah, so I didn't get to everything that you asked me, to be honest. I just didn't have the time to do it, but I do have some things. Just.
Oh, you mean like the crumbling foundation stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured that might not be.
So I didn't get a chance to take the lead, but just take through, one about the other. That's just the graph that you asked for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And just to give you, so you don't feel really bad or too bad about Wellington not going up that much. We just had our assessors meeting and these will be increases for some local towns. And other than the reval towns go up, but most everyone else is kind of.
Save the extras. Okay, so more or less, the first one's a fever list that I asked her to kind of show what the trends are on her grand list. Just one.
Money gets put all those big.
What's that?
Money the most big distribution centers, that's what every places.
Yeah.
A lot.
So, the reval, of course, shows an uptick as far as the amount of the grand list, but that's, but the mill rate, of course, goes, plummets with that inverse relationship. So, flat grand list is really what we should be talking about as far as planning for the future.
So I know one thing you had asked about was, going to 90% depreciation for motor vehicles versus 85. That would give you a little bit, I don't know, it would, I think it would be something like 9%, and that was kind of like the average for a town that did it in the motor vehicle. It could go up. But that could change, a lot of things can change right now. There's not many exemptions for like trucks up at FedEx or anything. That if they get a bunch of new trucks, then that that motor vehicle exemption number goes up. So we don't really.
Do you have an idea of dollar impact of that policy on that?
No, I'll have to, I will get all this information that
Oh, okay.
I just didn't get a chance to do it. So.
I mean, is there still an option as far as state law goes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
does everybody follow
I
what
think it
that
has
is?
to go to, I know the Board of Selectmen at least have to approve it, and I don't remember if it has to go to town meeting or not.
Can you explain basically what that is that we're talking about?
Yeah,
so people aren't coming in the middle.
So in 2024, the state changed how motor vehicles are valued. We don't do, the nadir values, average retail value, what you can sell it for. They said, all right, because a lot of the cars went up during COVID, and so the state didn't want that to be happening. That's why they capped the mill rate for motor vehicles, and they changed how it's valued. So now it's a declining percentage of the MSRP. It starts at 85% of MSRP in year one, goes down to 30%, 20%. It cannot be lower than 500. And, that's how that works. You have the option of starting at 90% and going down. So that's where you get a little bit of bonus.
85% of the sticker price.
There's no adjustment. It doesn't matter if it doesn't have an engine. It's no adjustments for condition, mileage, none of that stuff. It's just, you got the car, this is the value. So what happened as a result of that was actually a lot of the commercial vehicles went down because a lot of those are older, things, but they, when we were doing it at market value, they were higher. So that kind of had a weird effect, I thought. I guess it benefited businesses. Yeah, so that's essentially how that works.
Well, personal vehicles all went pretty far down too in value, right?
Yes, there was like a 15%. Again, these are like overall
decreases.
Yeah. So that was that would have been a one-time hit for this year. I don't have on this chart.
That's part of the impact.
Yeah, the motor vehicle.
Yeah.
See what happened. Yeah, I mean, it went up a little bit last year, and then let's see, yeah, it went up a little bit. This past year, I need my chart. Remember? Yeah, so motor vehicle, yeah, you can see that it pretty much stayed the same over the past 2 years. Kind of flat.
Okay.
So I have no great wisdom as to how to grow the grand list. I think the cost of construction is making it expensive for people to build, and you're not going to get as many new houses. The foundations, I think those are getting fixed. I think that the total number that are unrepaired is going down. That's one of the things you had asked me about was the future of the money for that. And I'm just look at that. I will get back to you on that.
Okay. And about half of them are
more than half are fixed.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's only like maybe one
that are identified, yeah, not everybody.
Yeah, but there's only like one or maybe two that come on, the past couple of years each year. So, personal property, unfortunately, if you get a business, I mean, there's some, decent manufacturing businesses in town, but their machinery is exempt. So you get new machinery, it's exempt. So that, there's not much that's going to come from that unless you are a non-manufacturer, like Love's was when they started. The gas stations, when they remodel, the two there on River Road, they remodeled in the past couple of years. Their values went up for personal property. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and there was anything else?
I don't know. Are there any other questions about this issue or what we got for here?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, homes are still selling, at high prices just because there's a limited supply of them. I live in Willimantic, and a house next door to me went on the market. I was shocked, and it's probably going to go for it. There's just not a lot of houses.
No, a lot of housing stuff.
Yeah.
Anything else? Thanks for coming in.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
And I'll give you paperwork for your next meeting.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so other things I wanted to mention before we go to ending. is, that the auditor, the annual audit has been done. Mike Van Deventer is usually our, our auditor who presents it. He's ready to go, but I think it came in a little late this year. I think rather than do it on the heaviest part of the budget season for us, that we should postpone it. He's fine with that. He said there are no major issues to be concerned about, particularly in putting the annual budget together, but he said that in general. So if you guys are okay with it, I don't really want to schedule that till we've got a budget. Is that consensus in that? Good.
Yeah, sounds smart.
Thanks. And the first selectman, there's an issue with the Wellington Hill Fire Department with some water damage and, on affecting their roof, which is up for replacement in the CIP plan in the next year. So there's a question about money in the CIP plan, not for that, but for that's been in a holding queue. Do you want to describe it, or am I doing okay?
There was money that was earmarked to do some design work for the fire station. So we've been talking about whether or not that's sort of all on hold right now, as the Emergency Services Efficiency Committee is working to figure out.
Building committee.
Building
committee dissolved.
Okay.
Oh,
Building committee.
you mean you met that goal?
I met the goal, but I didn't want to go no more.
So that money is still tied up and earmarked, and so we had already been talking about what to do about that, whether that should become unearmarked and go back to being freed up, which it was supposed to come out of Fund 17. But so anyway, I don't know. This is.
But then this storm arose that ice dam Mecca, and so anyway, so the first selectman asked if the head of the committee and the chair of CIP, Jim Marshall, the head of the committee as Andy Marco, and I as on Board of Finance could sit down and figure out what would be the best way, because at some point, either out of our fund balance or somewhere else, we're need to deal with this roof issue. And so we're going to talk about how best to do that, given all the fun, shoals we're trying to steer the ship around. So I just want you guys to be aware of that, and I'll keep you in the loop about it.
This is ice dams, cousins.
This is what?
This is ice dams, have a style of
Yes, they have a bad ice dam problem.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people.
The septic problem is fixed. They can fill the toilets again, which is nice. You've got that going for them.
Let's see, I think that's about it. And then next week is the selectmen's budget, so, rest up. And you'll have, I believe I'll have that too Monday. So that's more time than we've had sometimes in the past.
Yeah, that's true.
Off and on, it's a big sucker to wrestle down, isn't it? So, if you guys have anything else, before we go to present to speak? Is it next? Yeah. Let's open that. Present to speak, anyone in the room or anyone who's spoken before and wants to speak again? Anyone online? Oh, there's someone here right now. Would you like to ID yourself, sir?
Yes, I would. My name is Pete Tanaka, and not following my predecessor, I will tell you that my address is 125 Mason Road. If you show up at an unassuming time, and maybe you'll help. What we did here tonight is I think we spoke about 90% of the time on 20% of the budget. My numbers could be vastly wrong, but I believe that 80% of the school budget is, collective bargaining agreements. So that's where the money is. And when you talk about cutting people, because that's where the money is. You gotta go, that's why you rob banks. That's where the money is. So I understand that. I don't envy your position at all. With the 6.81% increase here and the 2.6% from Region 19, that's 75% of our budget. That comes to a 4% increase in the budget before we get to general government. Last year, general government was cut 2.5% year over year. You cannot do that to general government. We've got to plow the roads. We've got to cut the trees. We've got to do a lot of things in this town. We've got to figure out our grand list. We've got to file our plate papers with the town clerk. We've got to collect our taxes. There's a lot of stuff that the town has to do. You can't continue to cut that in favor of education. I know that education is important, but these other issues are important as well. So I think that another thing I understood is the contract out on the para. When it comes up next week, I believe it is, Troy will probably be coming back to you and asking for another plow driver. I think that the $9,000 increase for a new employee, by getting rid of the contract out for the plow, we will be getting a full-time person in place of a 12 to 14 day a year person. I think that would be fairly reasonable spending. But tonight's budget, we're looking at approximately half the town's budget. You have to remember that 75 cents out of every tax dollar is education in this town. That's not unusual. But you have to remember the other side of this. The cold hard truth, and I think we learned it over three referendums last year, is that while we don't want to look at this as a big number and just a number and vote against the number, we have to remember that at minimum wage, it's costing somebody an hour of their life for every $15 this budget goes up. That's a lot of people's lives that you're spending here. So please be aware of that. And I think that's all I got for tonight. Thank you.
Anyone else present to speak? Pete?
Good evening, Peter Wilkinchich, 97 Trask Road. I want to agree with the first selectman. The Board of Finance's job is to look at the numbers. The numbers. Selectman.
You mean the former first selectman?
No.
Oh, you mean what Mike said?
Earlier this
year. Okay, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Thank you for clarifying.
No,
I thought you were going to agree with me, and I was a little shocked.
You are emeritus, my friend.
Thanks, Pete, sorry.
But no,
please continue.
The first selectman urged tonight to focus on numbers, and that's certainly your job as the Board of Finance. And I'm looking at the same numbers that our former first selectman was just looking at. And last year, after 3 referendums, we reduced the Board of the town budget by $159,000 or 2.2%. The Board of Education budget went up 2.5%. But remember, that's on a $10 million plus budget. So Pete's correct. They already have all our money. There's nothing else left to run the town on. And then, of course, Region 19 went up 4.9%. So arts news tonight is encouraging. It sounds like it could be half of that. So that may help if I didn't misunderstand art. But essentially, what's deeply troubling here to any taxpayer in Wellington is that our inflation rate, which I just checked a short while ago on AI, at the end of January was 2.8%. Well, this is almost triple that. And this is just the K budget, not Region 19, not the town. Endangers, as Pete just said, our town delivering basic services to its residents that we cut last year. What are we going to do? Cut it again? 5% to attempt to subsidize K8? It is unsustainable. Something has to change. And it can't be, we don't like what the federal government and the state government are doing. That ship has sailed. We are where we are now. and you need to look at these numbers and have the Board of Education bring us a budget that is sustainable. And this one is not. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone online? That looks like, yeah, Lori, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have my video on because I look miserable. I also think that we need to keep in mind that every year over the past few years, we have gone with the most austere budget we could. And that people insisted that we had to keep cutting and we had to get down to a certain low number. And every year it makes the next year worse if we don't provide what has to be done to meet the needs of our school children and our town. So a now $9,000 increase for public works to have a full-time employee instead of hiring out for some of those services makes so much more sense, because then we have another employee that is actually there every day doing the work. But it's an increase, and every year we keep cutting things, and that's not sustainable. So, you know, yes, we have to tweak where we can. We have to, I like this letter to Nuccio and Jeff Gordon. It's just, you know, to just go along with what Peter Latinchik said, we also have the other side of it. We can't just keep cutting every year and have services that people need. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Here or abroad? No? Does anyone else want to say anything else about this? Okay. So, third try. All right. Thank you. So we're going to move to good and welfare. Any comments for the good and welfare? I do appreciate the work that you guys are doing right now, because I know it's getting more and more intense, and that's we kind of do that. It's like snag everybody in with the sort of simpler, easier budgets, and then build up to a crescendo. It's like a musical piece. The whole thing's a concert. But I realize it demands a lot of folks that have other full-time occupations, and it does on the school board as well. I know you guys work really hard to get all that work done. Appreciate it. And other than that, move to adjourn.
So
All in favor?
No, we don't have to vote on it.
We don't really. I think people think it feels good or something. And thank you, everybody.
Yes.